Our guest today is Julieta Diaz, a proud Mexican and new Canadian in scenic Nova Scotia, who radiates joy with her husband as they await their first child in 2024. Enthusiastic about neuroscience and positive psychology, she holds numerous academic achievements and speaks over 4 languages. Beyond accolades, she treasures love and compassion, dedicating herself to holistic development and elevating others. Focused on building bridges with cultural humility, she embraces life's challenges with unbreakable faith. Julieta's diverse passions, from baking to rock climbing, reflect her vibrant spirit. Rooted in a desire to serve, she seeks to share her journey, creating an inspiring tapestry of connection and love. Welcome to this episode of the Immigrant Journey. So thank you, Julieta, for joining us today on the Immigrant Journey. I'm happy to have you here. To get started, can you describe your immigration and settlement journey so far?
So far, well, first of all, Oyin, thank you so much for the honor of being here and being invited from the East Coast of Canada. I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia right now. And it's a pleasure, to be honest, and an honor to share pieces of my story and who I am. And hopefully for your audience and yourself, it's an instrument and it reached their hearts and their souls, and knowing that we're not alone in this journey. So my journey so far, I will say that, and I always share this very cautiously with people, that my story and acknowledging that all of our stories are unique, right? No one is. Absolutely. Even if it's similar, how we come here, either we came as students, or we came with a work, or we came because of a partner, or we came because of family, or a situation in our home countries that made us leave our home countries over here. Our stories are unique and unique to be celebrated and recognized as that. But mine, in particular, I'll say that it hasn't been with, that's what I thought. I'll disclaimer here. When I came, I thought, well, mine hasn't been, that much of ups and downs. It was smooth. When I came to Nova Scotia, I came as a student. And usually when I talk to people, I usually say that that's the smoothest way to come to a country, because you come to like a controlling kind of environment, right? Everybody that's starting a program, whether it's a bachelor's, a master's, a PhD, or whichever program it is, you start kind of everybody on the same boat in one way. You are starting a new adventure. You are sharing that experience with other people, regardless of where they're coming from or where they're from. But it's not true. It's not true. It's maybe smoother, but still a change. I lived in France before as well, so change and moving here and there was not something new to me. I need to mention that my mom is a child psychologist, so there was a lot of that lingo and that, change at home. But still, it's until you lived and you have an experience on your own that starts being real in reality for you. But always, Oyin, if you ask me now, if I could start all over, what would I do? I had a big love and passion for kids and youth and in people going through change. Now I understand that it might be with my own story, and being a kid that always needed to find a place to belong.
All that change.
One day I'm researching, different things online, and that's where the Canada story comes in. I remember I was on Google and I wrote international development studies. Just, something came to my mind, like I'll read a little bit more about this. And the first school that it appeared, a search, and the first link was St. Mary's University International Development Studies Program, and then a focus with Latin America. They had a lot of professors at the time. I don't know if the focus is still the same, but with Latin America. And my heart was set to like the communities I was in, the realities I learned, I saw, I witnessed. Oof, I clicked and I read. And Oyin, truly, I'm not lying here, and I don't share this every single day. But I thought, with all honesty, because it will come to the moment of the settlement piece here in Canada and why maybe I'm still here. So I read it, and I had everything to apply for it because I already applied to other two schools and graduate programs. So it was almost the same documentation they were asking for. So I had everything, and I'm like, they're just like a few months dated, but it's still within the time frame that they will accept that. So why not? But it was like almost involuntary. Like, it was not even that I was thinking about it. I sent everything, I uploaded everything, and I remember two little squares. Are you a Canadian citizen? Are you a permanent resident? Nope. Are you a Canadian citizen? Nope. And one more. Are you a Nova Scotian, like resident? Not just Canadian, but Nova Scotian, because they give different rates. Well, no. And then I sent the application, never told a soul. I didn't tell my mom, my dad, my friends, my boyfriend at the time, because it was like, I don't know what happened. It just went. All right.
It was a spontaneous thing for you.
Yes. And I forgot about it. And I had an email from the university saying, congratulations, Mrs. Diaz-Beltran, you have been accepted to the program, International Development Studies, Type 2, which means that someone that has a lot of experience is being accepted, which I'm like, I don't have that much of experience, as I will tell you about my challenges when I came. Other of my classmates had coming from sociology or political science or anthropology. I was coming from a very, very elitist business school. All my heart was put into understanding the social causes and challenges, but my university was completely opposite to what I was about to start doing, and what I learned and what I needed to unlearn. But I saw that, and not only that, I was granted, it was around $11,000 of a scholarship.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? I didn't apply for it.
And you didn't even apply for it?
Because I didn't have the qualifications of being Canadian citizen or permanent resident or Nova Scotian, and I do remember that correctly. And I was at awe, and I started crying again. But now, truly,
oh my God, tears of joy,
and understanding that, all right, there is a bigger purpose here. Because what are the odds of the same thing? And as I said, I'm a very spiritual person, and I do believe that our paths, they have a meaning and they have a purpose. So I didn't know where Halifax was. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I was coming. And I called my mom, and I told, and she was, first question, where? When did you apply? And then I remember, because when I called my husband, I was about to say my boyfriend, he also asked the same thing. When did you apply? And I remember, I even forgot about it. Like, I even forgot about that. So, okay. And then he said, Alberto is his name. He said, well, sweetie, then this means that you're going, and there is a purpose there. So you have my support. And of course, my parents were like, okay, well, there you go. When I came here, I remember contacting, because I wanted to keep working with children, and that I made sure I used to work with the children ministry in the department, with educational aspects, and not just in the spiritual piece, but like also development. So I contacted some communities here that I wanted to be part of, and just lend my talents or what I've learned. Nobody answered except for one person. And that one person became what they call me the Mexican daughter. So they just adopted me, basically. But the only thing I asked was not support for like housing, or I just say, this is my name, and I'm going for a school to Halifax, Nova Scotia. I'm gonna be arriving by August, but I would love to be part of your community, and hopefully can help with the children program. I'm happy to do whatever you need. So this person, he was the pastor of the church, respond right away with like this opening of course this is what we do, but if you want to explore even our our community, it's growing like diversity wise, so we would love to have like input in how that looks like for everybody, culturally to make sense. And all right, when I arrived at the airport, I was not expecting it. They were waiting for me. So it was a sequence of events that's what I'm very casually when I tell my story, to not say, oh, it has been very easy. Not at all, but it has not been as challenging as some of the other stories that I have been part of and that I have been have the honor to listen from. So I put a lot of pressure on me at the beginning, trying to look beyond of what was happening in front. And what was happening in front is that I was about to start a program that it was very demanding, because I didn't know that the program type 2 that I was accepted is the whole master of 2 years in 1 year, plus the thesis. So the first month...
you had to do all that in 1 year?
Yep. Plus your master thesis and defending it. And the first month, 2 months, I wanted to go back. And this is me being very honest. This high achiever, this person with the scholarships, a straight A student from the moment I put my foot in the first grade of school, I felt it was surpassing. I was reading articles that I felt like I had not understanding whatsoever. I need to say that it was very much, so everything I've had studied, it was the other, like it was kind of unlearning everything.
Opposite.
Completely the opposite. But even what I was reading in English or in French, even in Spanish, I was, why am I not getting this? What's happening here? And I remember at one point feeling so overwhelmed. I remember having a classmate, lovely person. He ended up quitting the program because of the harassment that he will receive from one particular professor. I also received it, but this is where our experiences and our backgrounds came in. I most of the time thought that it was that there was a joke, or I would just like, I don't think that person said that in reality. Now, of course, I know, yes, it was real. For me, it was easier to maybe brush it off, because I hadn't had to struggle with that all my life or part of my life. That was the first time I was experiencing what it felt to be honest, be belittled a little bit and not understanding what that actually was. For him, it was too harmful. So he ended up quitting. He ended up going to another university. And that started opening my eyes to other situations too, and other things. And the person that actually stopped me to go back home, because I was ready. I was like, what am I even doing here? Like, I don't need to put myself through these things. Like I don't want to, and I'm feeling so inadequate. That was, my ego was being hurt. That is what I'm gonna be honest. So Alberto, my husband now, he was like, nope, you are not leaving, because you didn't get there just because of you. And you know what I mean by that.
Yeah, and then there's a bigger vision.
Yes, and then I humbled myself and I said, you know what, Julie, even this is for you to learn. Like, you won't be always, at the top. My first C, because it was a Z, this is the first time I think I'm saying that in public for the world to know. No, I'm kidding. It was there. It was here. Like, it was the first time, and it's just a grade, which I always, when I counsel, now that I work with new grads or grad students, undergrad students, grades are just grades. Of course, it means certain things, but at the end of the day, that doesn't define you as a human, as a person. Your potential is not there. Solitude is something that I struggled with as an immigrant, as a newcomer, as a student, but it was also in that solitude that I grew up a lot as a human. I always now tell people that, it is okay we all get lonely time to time, in life, but it is our decision how to use that moment in our lives, whether and there are always options, right? Either you feel sad, you feel you said, oh, poor me, I'm alone, or you said, you know what, this is not going to be forever. And I'm being very candid here. It is a strong feeling. It is a very strong and powerful feeling to feel that whether it's true or not, for you is true. For you is reality. You might
Yeah,
have
it's
a
your
great
experience.
Exactly. You may have a great community and they love you, but the feeling of being alone is real for you. When you move to a new country, a new school, a new anything, nobody's waiting for you. Nobody's saying, "Oh, Julie, we were waiting for you." What I mentioned about
Mm,
people waiting for me at the airport, that is a beautiful thing, but that doesn't always happen.
always
And that
happen.
is
Yeah.
the reality, and we need to be okay with that, because then it's on us to understand what that home and that belonging piece comes from. And it comes, at least what I've learned so far in my 30 years, it comes from your here inside of you. Because even in
Mm-hmm.
those lonely moments that you find yourself, because we're humans and we'll find ourselves in those moments, you understand that it is even a privilege, to have a moment to connect with yourself and get to know
Yeah.
yourself better, and that will provide you and give you tools to connect with others on different levels too, because you will know yourself, therefore you don't need to shy away from it, and people will appreciate that authenticity that you're coming. But the reality is nobody's waiting for you, and people come sometimes with that in mind. People comes
That
with
expectation. Yeah.
yes, with that expectation, but also with that hope. And when hope is crushed, that's something very painful. And working, as I mentioned, my first job, so I went back home. The story does it. So I finished my university, um, and something happened back home with my dad. It was a very delicate situation, so I had two options. And I think a lot of the times, immigrants, we face those situations, whether it's at the beginning of our journey, in the middle, once we have been here for 20, 30 years, but when you still have loved ones elsewhere, there are times that where your heart it's torn. Either you go, either you stay. And
Or
if
you stay.
you stay with the consequences of that decision. If
Mm-hmm.
you go, and then you stay with the consequences of that decision too. So at the time, I decided that I will go home. Talking about decisions, I was about to graduate from my master's, and the scholarship back home, they called my parents, and they said if she wants to stay and pursue a PhD, we'll pay for everything. The university told me, if you want to pursue your research, just apply, and the spot for the PhD, it's yours. And then this happened with my dad, and then there's another decision. So hmm because if I said no and I came back home, that was the end of it. Like, that was not
Yeah.
like an extended offer to, oh no, whenever you want, just come back and there you
Whenever
have.
you're ready. Yeah.
Yes, yes, no, 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 it was like you finish, you graduate, and then you proceed. And I remember talking with my mom, and my mom was very understanding. She was, sweetie, this is your life. You decide, whatever makes sense to you. I remember talking with my boyfriend at the time. Oh, he waited almost 5 years. Poor. Yes, my heart goes to him. Um, but ultimately, I decided no. Who I am and everything that has gotten me to this point in my life, in my story, it was the support of those two people, my mom and my dad. So if
Mm.
this is a time for me to show that, opportunities will come, and if they don't, I will look for them. And if they don't, life is it's now, is when it's happening, not tomorrow, not yesterday. So I remember making my bags, and I already had a job offer here. I was not even graduating, I had a job offer, which how
In Canada
so
at the
many
time.
times, and how so many times that's a big challenge for a lot of newcomers, and have that first opportunity to start their careers. So went back home, will never regret it. I don't know where I will be if I haven't, but I don't think too much about it. So being home, stay with my dad when that happened. Um, And I started working with Save the Children in Mexico, and seeing so so much of a world that I didn't have notion of in different realms, but it makes me stronger in different ways. I had different opportunities there, and one day I was leaving home because I don't know, but back home you live with your parents until you get married, or at least that's how
Mhm.
my culture. At the
My
time,
place too.
yes, I don't know if they're changing that right now, but back back home, back in the day,
That's how it was.
yes, like it will be, if you are working and living in the same city, why would you go somewhere else
And rent your place, right?
if you're, if you're with your parents, and there is not that expectation neither from the parents, neither from us. So I was living with my parents, and I was going to work, and I remember my dad knocking at my car, like in front of my car, and he said, "Sweetie," the window, "Sweetie, I know where you came back, and I'm very, very happy, and I'm very proud. You don't know how much, but I didn't give you wings to cut them off. So whenever you're ready, and whenever you feel that it's time for you to fly again, just do that, sweetie." And my dad and I would have this really amazing connection. I knew exactly why he was saying what he was saying. And we, of course, as a family, we had the conversations we need to have. We had the support we need to have from the experience that the family went through with my dad's situation. And on April 2018, I came back to Canada. A month after I came, I started working with ISENS. ISENS is the Immigrant Services Association of Nova Scotia. And it was a beautiful experience for me. I was still quite young, I'll say, at the time, in age, but I think wisdom also is not measured by age. It's by
Age, yeah.
experiences, and the humility to take on those experiences. Although having the opportunity to hear so many stories from fellow immigrants and fellow newcomers. With my program was for high skilled immigrants or recent grad students or international graduates, because I was one, so I was able to advocate for the program to also be supporting international graduates. They will be referred to my program, which was a mentorship program. I will connect people with professionals, whether they were immigrants at one time or locals, but someone that were doing something similar to their professions. So have conversations, connect them to the community, all that. Most of my intake sessions that usually are like 20 minutes, mine were like an hour. But it was okay, I loved it, and it became more of a counseling session rather than a job ready prep session. What I started discovering is that people at one time, it was their confidence and their self-esteem and their identity that has been crushed rather than their confidence in how to perform a job. Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes these great professionals and humans, they have been in the country maybe for a year, more than 8 months, with these expectations. I'm coming with this degree or this many degrees, not just one, this
Yeah.
great career from my country, and I'm coming here, and the expectation was that, well, apparently Canada is looking for talent, and it was not the reality they were facing. More so those
Mm-hmm.
that came with families and kids, and the saving accounts were just running low. So there was a lot of pieces that, for me, that aspect of change, how to deal with change, how to deal with those aspects of, okay, sometimes in the interview was not about how to showcase your skill. It was the anxiety and the nervousness that was built in prior that interview that maybe played against them, because there was so much on the go or in the game for them. That job for someone might mean, scaling on the ladder or getting a promotion or maybe a better salary. For so many immigrants, it means being able to stay here, being able to
Yeah.
sustain my family, being able to regain that piece of me that I felt it
Yeah.
was lost already.
Being
So,
able to get back into my career that I
yes,
sacrificed in my home country
yes,
to come here.
Yes, start developing this love for, okay, all right, this is how the stories make sense to me, how mine makes sense to them when I share them. I always tell clients at the end, if I'm making it, you can make it too. There are not many difference between you and I. And we are now
Right.
together, we're connected, so if we can be of support, and that goes, not just because it was my job, but that was just my understanding of if we are in better place or maybe more knowledgeable place because of the experience you have had, sharing that with others, it just increment this sharing, because then they can share that with other people and then other people, and it's like a chain that goes on. Oh, okay, it's possible, this is
Mhm.
feasible. We can make things happen with the ups and the downs. But my husband, on the contrary of me, he never lived on a different place. The first moment he left his hometown was when he came to Canada in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, because we got married 2019, and then we got here as a family in 2020, January 2020. And one of the things that
Mm.
I remember mentioning to him was, you know, when you moved and then you went back, or you come back, you feel inside of you that no time has passed. That the time is just suspended. And it's not true. You go back, and people's lives have changed. They have moved on. Your friends, they're still your friends, but in reality, and this might be harsh, but you're not part of their lives anymore on a daily basis.
That's true. Yeah.
You go
And
back, and
there's
if
a
you have moved,
disconnection there. Yes, you still love them. You still have maybe a few things in common,
yeah,
but there's a disconnection. And what you talk about at this point is not on the same level anymore.
no, no. The experiences you're having here, you can share them on the WhatsApp group or through text or a call here and there, but that is different. So those are kind of the trade-offs sometimes that you do when you decide to move to a new country, and that's going back to the whys, always having conversations
Mm.
when people want to make that move, or why are you doing it? Are you doing it because of a better quality of life? What does quality of life means to you?
Mean to
No,
you.
and that will mean something
Yeah,
maybe
and
different.
what's the trade-off? What are you willing to sacrifice to get that?
Yes.
Because immigrating comes with a lot of sacrifices that most times we don't even talk about.
Yes. Yes, and you don't even realize because you go to the motions of the day, and
Yeah.
well, this is just life. But then, for instance, I had a uh, awful accident that if I tell you about, it was like, Julie, what? It was a very silly accident, very silly. But the repercussions of that silly accident is still to today. So I was in the kitchen, and I was making overnight oatmeal. I remember, and I was taking the oatmeal from one of the covers, and I left the door open. And I remember thinking, I should close that. And then, no, it's going to be just a minute. I'm going to take it, pour, put it back.
Put it back.
I don't know what happened. I don't know if a phone rang like in the first level, or I don't know. The only thing I remember is that I run and I hit my head right here, like just throw me to the floor, and I didn't pass out. I don't remember passing out. I remember the pain and the blood coming and coming, and I'm just like there yelling and screaming because it was so painful. But also I thought, well, it's just a kid, such a silly accident, right? What's the worst that can happen? Didn't pay attention to it. Next day I went to work. Of course, life never was the same again, but I didn't know. And I didn't know where to go or who to talk to say something is going wrong here, something is not okay. And talking about the medical system and the differences between where I'm coming from here, where I don't think we're gonna get into that, but the crisis that we're
Yeah.
into. So
Let's
it
not
was
even talk about healthcare in Canada.
no, no, but just to say that those are the things that you don't realize until you are there. For instance, it was almost a year after that my life was just going down, down, down. Headaches. I never had like migraines before. I had headaches here and there, but big migraines. I couldn't go to a supermarket. That was 2018, actually, in October 2018. I remember going to the supermarket and the lights were just making me so sick to my stomach that I wanted to throw up. Now, of course, I know that are symptoms of a concussion. I didn't know. I went to emergency. They said, no, this is not an emergency anymore because it happened like a few weeks ago, so nothing was performed. Okay. I started getting sick and sick and sick until my immune system was crushed completely. And I didn't tell anybody. You know why? Because I didn't want to worry anybody. Because I was living at the time with my Canadian parents, but I knew they are not my parents' parents. So I didn't want to worry them. I didn't want to. And then I thought, what do I call my parents? They are not here. So I'm just going to worry.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do to help me here.
So I was just going through the motions on my own, which it was very silly because I could, of course, tell someone until it was too late. I went to a walk-in clinic, then I started passing out, and I started a lot of awful things. It was until a walk-in clinic doctor saw me, and I started mentioning, I was going for a different thing, but she saw me and she said, Julie, did you have an accident? And I said, well, yeah, but it was last year. Last year, it was almost 2 years because I was already married. It was 2020. Like, it was... Anyway, and I explained to her, and then she sat down and she looked at me and she said, Julie, I'm very sorry to say that what you had is not going to get better. It's not about headaches or migraines. You now have developed something that is called post-concussion syndrome, and you need to see a neurologist right away. And I'm like, okay, we won't go into those years because it will take hours, but I said, all right, so at least now we know. So can you refer me? And then, of course, she said, she was really apologetic, and she said, Julie, I'm so sorry. No, I can't. I'm not your family doctor. And even if I were, the wait list is between 2 to 3 years because this is not an emergency. That moment, I felt, so what can I do now? Like, the pain is being unbearable. I can barely do my work. I needed to, ask for different accommodations because I'm losing it. And she was very kind, but she said, the only thing I can recommend to you is take Tylenol or some sort of like painkillers that might not hurt your stomach as much in the long run. Then I called my parents, and of course they were like, what's going on with them? Like, anyway, you're coming home. So I went home. And those are the moments when you ask yourself, what am I even doing here? Is it worth it? Is it worth it to, like, what is it? And then again, and I'm repeating myself, but then is the why. Why am I doing this? Because the easiest thing could be, I went home, and when I say home, it's 3 planes from here. So it's not just Mexico there. It's like 4 airports, 3 planes. I saw 3 different neurologists. The 3 of them concurred. I decided to choose one because it was the one that I didn't need to say anything. He just asked me, what was the accident? I told him, and then he said, I'll stop you there. After that, did you start experiencing ABCD? It's like he was looking through like a crystal ball, and like, yes. And I started crying, and he said, don't you worry, don't cry. Like, I'm just crying because it's the first time in like 2 years that someone it's actually validating and validating what has been happening, because for the longest time, physicians here were telling me that it was a stress and that I was making that, on my head. And I was like, well, yes, it was my head, but it was physically, physiologically, not just emotionally. So came back. And I'm still not support on that round as much, but I know now, and I know how to navigate that. For a year, I didn't sleep. My brain, what happened on that silly accident was that my brain lost the function or the capacity to really sleep. Like, I will go to bed, and yes, I can close my eyes, but my brain was never like switched off. So for a year it was like that. My immune system was really crushed because I didn't have that recovery time for rest. And he said, what is so important that you cannot stop? What is so important that in life that you need to keep on going? And that question stuck with me so many months. What is so important that I cannot stop? And then what was so important that I couldn't stop before? And it's all those expectations. Going back to the expectations, why do we put all of this pressure on us? Why do we put all of these, all the accomplishments we were bringing for our home countries, and seeing that with my clients? I came here quite young, to be honest, so let's say I didn't have that much of a legacy have built back home. But I have seen that for some of my clients, that they had these beautiful careers. They have worked so hard on them for 30 years, 40 years, and they moved here, and all of a sudden that's gone, because it is gone. Not on the pragmatic sense, but in emotionally aspects, that when you are facing all these roadblocks coming to a new reality, in a way it's gone, because sometimes those careers are not recognized here. When you're coming from, for instance, medical field, legal field, that you need to work on like years to get those back, and you will start from the beginning,
from the lowest.
Yes. So why were you doing, whether you were aware of that before? So I'm a big advocate of people supports and resources of what is real. So when people comes, you can decide, yes, I knew what I was to face, and actually yes, and actually the why I'm coming is not for further my career. It's for A, B, or C. It's because I value A, B, or C, and that's okay. So so you gather the tools that you need to face those realities. You can't, that it doesn't happen a lot of the times. So it creates a lot of emotional a lot of emotional distress on people, and that's where this really passion and dream of mine start growing more and more, of how someone can feel completely at home and feel that they belong and feel that they can thrive in their own terms when they're struggling with all these thoughts, the ones I should be doing but I'm not doing, I was but I'm not here, I'm in the expectations of the family or whatever that you left there. And
back
I'm just
home. Yes,
exactly, I'm just speaking from the experiences of the stories I've heard, own experience. And as I said, I might not have that years back home, or a family that I left, or a family that I'm supporting back home. But when you have all of that, can you imagine all the baggage, all the weight someone is bringing, let alone all the challenges they will face in this new reality, this new home?
yeah, I completely hear that. I had similar experience last year when my dad passed as well. And I came to Canada in 2018 and hadn't gone back home until I heard my dad passed. And it was a shock, because when I was leaving home, I never thought I was going to go back to his lifeless body. It's something nobody ever thinks would happen, but that's part of life. Tomorrow is not promised for anybody, right? So I loved how you talked about thinking about that. While we can't fully prepare for that, but at least having that realization and knowing that that's a reality that could possibly happen to us. But thank you so much, Julieta, for sharing your experiences with us today, from coming as an international student to your career, your family, even your health. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. If there was one advice you could give a newcomer today, or like you said, you know people who want to come to Canada, or people who are new to Canada, or people who you work with in your line of job that are immigrants, from your experience, from the experiences of other people you've heard, and from what you've seen works for people, what would be the one advice that you would give to immigrants or newcomers?
Oh, Fayin, what a wonderful question. What a wonderful question. And you know what? Besides what I've been repeating about really understanding the whys, what is motivating you to make that move? That will be the first. The first is why. And being very honest, I usually tell people, as I said, I love writing. And I really believe in therapeutic writing, which is there are things that sometimes you don't feel really comfortable sharing with anybody because whatever is your own thoughts, your privacy, write it
Mhm.
down. Be honest with you. Write it down, even if you cannot say it to like the mirror or whatever, because that is important. The motivation, why, that will be the first, and I'll be repeating. But the second will be talk to people that has gone and that you may know that has gone through similar situations of like immigrating, but ask the hard questions. Don't ask about the
Mm.
pretty, because that's pretty easy to find out over there, out there. I might to say that Canada is beautiful. It's a beautiful country. It has so
Yeah.
many um so many wonderful things, like, and if you are like a nature lover, which I am, that will be the first, like, nature wise, uh, I'm a very outdoorsy person. However, my recommendation will be ask those hard questions, those really real and raw questions, because that will actually set you up for success. I think just to finish, the last part is that you're not alone in this journey, truly. Anyone that might be hearing or listening or might be having those thoughts of like making those moves, you're not alone.
Thank you so much. I really loved how you keep hitting on your why, because I also think that's very important to remember your why when it gets difficult, because it would get difficult.
Yeah.
Like you said, some people's journey are more challenging than others, but whether more comparatively challenging than others, we all have our challenges.
Yeah.
And what keeps us going when those challenges comes up are usually the why. One key thing you also mentioned is the importance of connection.
Mhm.
And I loved how you talked about even connection with self. You talked about growth in solitude,
Mhm.
that people come and maybe for the first time, this is the first time they're
Yeah.
ever alone in their
Yeah.
life. I hear your story about you having to move a lot, but you moved with your family.
Yeah.
And for the first time, you had to move
Yeah.
to, okay, maybe not the first time when you went to
Yes.
France,
Yes.
maybe you went alone, yeah.
Yeah.
But coming to Canada, you
Yeah.
came alone. And for the longest time, you had to stay by yourself in
Yeah.
solitude. And there's a lot of growth in that. There's a lot of learning about self. There's a lot of self discovery in
Yeah.
that. And there's absolutely nothing wrong. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, the importance of the journey is growth. Whether
Yes.
that growth is in self, is in career, is in
Yeah.
connection, however way it comes, the important thing is to grow. Thank you so much again, Julieta, for spending this time with me today, sharing your journey with me, and we'll definitely get your husband on the show. I can't wait to hear. I can't wait to hear his experiences as well, his journey, and how he tries to. You talk about him and how he's pragmatic, and I think that is one thing many immigrants need to learn. And so maybe we can get some tips and pointers from him on how to
Oh,
stay pragmatic in this journey as we go through life in a new country with all the challenges and baggages that come with that.
yeah. Thank you so much, Ayin. And if I just can finish by saying thank you for reaching out to me, and just I hope this can be of support or help, or just someone saying, well, if she's still there and with the brain injury and with everything, that will be the biggest blessing, and that I didn't get where I am by myself.